Okay, go to the poetry book, turn to page number 5, Thomas Hardy, and we will discuss the poem, The Darkling Thrush. Now, first of all, the word thrush is a reference to a bird. Okay, thrush is obviously a small bird like a sparrow, and this is a word which is not quite popular in the Indian context. We do not talk about thrush in India. Okay, and but thrush is a small bird, so it is important to understand that it's a small bird. It is not a strong or a large bird. Darkling means uh, darkling here has been used as an adjective to indicate that thrush is a bird that emerges or appears when it is dark, when something is heading towards darkness. Okay, and at that time if something appears or emerges, that is darkling. uh, First of all, look at the background of the poet, because that becomes a very important criteria of any poem. Thomas Hardy, page number 5, Reverie, page number 5. Thomas Hardy, 1840 to 1928, page number 5, Reverie. So he basically lived in the 19th century. Okay.
कौन सा poem sir?
Darkling Thrush. Turn to page number 5. Thomas Hardy, the poet. Thomas Hardy was one of the most prolific English novelists and poets of the late 19th century. Who can tell me the meaning of the word prolific? Prolific.
Important.
Prolific does not mean important or influential. Prolific, even though somebody who is prolific is obviously going to be important, so you are making it up. Prolific means productive,
Something which creative,
productive or fertile. One who can produce a lot of words. Like an author is going to be called prolific if that author or that poet is very productive. मतलब उसने एक poem नहीं लिखा है. That particular person has written a lot in terms of quantity. Okay, suppose if I say that Virat Kohli is a prolific batsman. Prolific means somebody who is productive in terms of quantity of runs. Got it? So Thomas Hardy was one of the most prolific English novelists and poets of the late 19th century. His novels such as They Duberville, Mayor of Casterbridge, and Jude the Obscure reflect the social and moral concerns of his age. However, Hardy's lyric poetry is by far his best known and most widely read. Lyric poetry means simply poems. So he is more famous for his poems than for his novels. His poetry explores a fatalistic outlook against the dark, rugged landscape of the native Dorset. Dorset is a place. What is the meaning of fatalistic? Aritrika, meaning of fatalistic. Fatalistic. Fatalistic.
Something dangerous.
When we use the word fatal, like the accident was fatal. Fatal means deadly or dangerous. So fatalistic outlook means a pessimistic or negative outlook. Means in his poems, you will not find hope or optimism. Understood? His poem is largely about negativity. In his poems or in his work, he is not talking about things in a positive way. He is taking a negative outlook of the society, that things are going to become very gloomy and bleak. Got it? So when you read his works, you find that he is trying to portray the idea that the world is coming to an end, or the society is heading towards a collective gloom or darkness. Samjhe? So his outlook is not a positive or pessimistic outlook. It is a fatalistic outlook. He rejected the Victorian belief of a benevolent God. Mansha, what is benevolent? Mehul, benevolent meaning. Dhruv, benevolent. Meaning of benevolent. Benevolent means somebody kind or generous, like a giving god. Okay, so benevolent means kind and generous, one who gives. Now, Victorian belief or the belief of Victorian era is that God is kind and God will take care of you. God will take care of the entire world. That is the Victorian belief. But he rejected that belief. So he thinks that God will not take care of the society. If humans are heading towards doom, then nothing can be done. So he is not planting a false belief in God. Okay. So he rejected the Victorian belief of a benevolent God, and much of his poetry reads as a sardonic lament. Lament means a sad story or a sad song. Sardonic means something full of dry humor, like a satire, satirical. Okay, and lament means a sad song or a sad story. Here, sad song because it's poetry. So his poetry is like a sad song, which is also a satire, also a sort of a dark humor against the society. सोसाइटी के ऊपर ये एक इनडायरेक्टली इन अ सटल वे एक व्यंग या एक जिसे कहते हैं टॉन्ट कर रहा है. ओके, दैट बिकॉज ऑफ द सोसाइटी, बिकॉज ऑफ द एक्शंस ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी, we are heading towards doom. Understood? So his poetry reads as a sardonic lament on the bleakness. Okay, bleakness means gloominess, gloom. The better word is gloom. Mayusi. Please underline bleakness and write GLOOM, gloom of the human condition. So he is not portraying the society as something cheerful. Rather, he is saying that the society is in a gloomy condition. And for that, the collective humanity is responsible. His style is highly original, combining a variety of meters and stanzaic forms. These are basically the structures of a poem. Like in a poem, you have rhythm or rhyme, you have stanzas, and meter is something which is the length of a poem. He often combines this with his rough hewn rhythms and colloquial diction. So Diksha, what is colloquial? Jinendra, colloquial. Rohan, colloquial, meaning of colloquial, Pratyaksh. Meaning of colloquial. Aritrika, meaning of colloquial? Or if you don't know, then say you don't know. What is colloquial?
So falafel.
Not powerful. Colloquial is like, suppose when you read Shakespeare, like Tempest, that is not colloquial language. Because उनको समझ नहीं आता. Colloquial is simple everyday language. Simple everyday language. Okay. Like for example, if you read a book, that book or that poem may be written in a very simple language, which local people can understand without referring to a guidebook. That is colloquial English. For example, Spider and the Fly. Remember that poem? That poem can be read even by a class 5 student. उसमें कोई भी difficult word नहीं है. That is colloquial English. But if you read something like Birches or a poem with like Desiderata, so that is not exactly colloquial. Or maybe the better example will be say a difficult story like Chief Seattle or maybe for example you have in stories also you may have it
After Blenheim.
After Blenheim. After Blenheim is colloquial. I mean, colloquial means when the language is easy. Okay, if the language is not easy, then that is non-colloquial or that is abstruse. Anyway, so you find that his writings are often colloquial. He influenced a host of later poets. Diction means basically language. Okay. He influenced a host is a collective noun, a group of later poets such as Robert Frost. Now, Robert Frost is in your syllabus. Okay, the second poem, Birches, is by Robert Frost. W.H. Auden, Dylan Thomas, and Philip Larkin. Now, the last paragraph is obviously a gist of the poem. The Darkling Thrush is a nature poem with the theme of hope. The poem begins with a bleak picture of despair and dejection. Despair means, write down. Dhruv, what is the meaning of despair?
So despair मतलब कभी बिछड़ना नहीं.
Despair is the opposite of hope. So it is hopelessness. Please write down hopelessness. And dejection is sadness or sorrow. Like, I am feeling dejected, means I'm feeling upset, sad. So dejection means sadness or sorrow. Please write down these words carefully. So the poem begins with on a sad note. The poem presents a society which is where there is no hope. As the poem begins with a bleak picture of despair and dejection, as the poet describes in lyrical descriptive detail the dying of the old world at the turn of the century. He finds little cause for hope or joy around him. Suddenly he hears the song of a songbird which spreads warmth and hope into the earlier desolate and dead landscape. The poet finds his spirit is still hope. The poet finds his spirit rising, and with it the realization that there is still hope and joy in the world. Uh, so the poem can be bisected into two parts. In the first part, you have the image of a dark society, a society which is struggling, and there seems to be no hope. And finally, the poet hears the song of a bird. The poet hears the song of a thrush, of the thrush. And the song seems to carry some hope. And the poet believes that probably there is still some hope left in the world. Okay. Look at go to page number 6. Acha, Aratrika, read the first stanza. Mansha, read the first stanza loudly.
So I'll read it too.
Read the first stanza.
I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled by stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires.
Now look at the first stanza here. There are some words which are quite difficult. I leant upon a coppice gate. Okay, underline that. Underline coppice gate. Write down the meaning of it. A wooden gate. A wooden gate that opens or faces a patch of woods. A wooden gate that opens up or faces a patch of PATCH, patch of woods. Like सामने में एक jungle type है. There is a Small forest. I leant upon a coppice gate. Second line, when frost was spectre grey. In frost, F is capital. Now, what is the meaning of frost? Meaning of frost? Ice, right? So frost is basically frosty weather, means cold weather. Frost is like ice. Here F is capital, which means frost has been personified. Frost has been personified, like frost is a person. Okay. Frost was spectre gray. Underline spectre gray. So Diksha, what is the meaning of spectre? Rohan, meaning of spectre? So Diksha, Acha Pratyaksh, what is the meaning of spectre?
Sir, don't know.
Sir,
Yes, spectre. Spectre is basically a ghost. Ghost. Atma. Okay, so spectre gray means, write down, as gray as a ghost. Okay. You know, if you have like spectre or like spectre is basically the figure of a ghost. Wo Atma, the smoky figure. Third line. And winter's dregs. Underline dregs. It means the last part. Last part, okay, or the residual part. The last part or the residual part. Now, winter's dregs means the last or the residual part of the winter. Like for example, suppose if you are winter almost over हो गया है, last के कुछ दिन बचे हैं, that is called winter's dregs. Made desolate. Desolate, that is deserted. Desolate. Dhruv, desolate. Desolate, तुम लोग का vocabulary कहाँ है? I don't know. Why don't you read novels?
sir, something which is
Sir,
empty. Or
Empty, okay.
So
Empty,
desolate
fine.
मतलब sir पूरा मतलब वो नहीं
Like give
होता?
me a sentence. Give me a sentence. You want to give me a sentence with
So
desolate?
वो movie था Lord of the Rings, Desolate of Smaug करके.
Like give me a sentence from desolate without using any help. Don't try to Google it out. Desolate, common word. Aritrika, I expect better from you. So Diksha, give me a sentence with the word desolate. Any small sentence will do. Put in more effort. Desolate, a common word, and you must have like come across this word hundreds of times.
So I feel desolate and barren after hearing
I
the.
feel desolate and barren. Okay, better. Desolate basically means lonely and neglected. Lonely and neglected. यानी जहां पे जैसे वीरान कोई जगह, समझे? वीरान हिंदी समझते हो कि वो भी नहीं समझते? नहीं, डिफरेंस है कि डेजोलेट में एक नेगेटिव कॉनोटेशन है. सपोज अगर कोई प्लेस में कोई नहीं रहता, ओके, तो वो प्लेस पॉजिटिव या नेगेटिव कुछ भी हो सकता है. लेकिन व्हेन आई से देखो इन दोनों में क्या डिफरेंस है. अगर मैं कहूँ ये प्लेस लाइक यू नो खाली है या एम्प्टी है, या फिर ये प्लेस वीरान या सुनसान है, तो डिफरेंस है. मतलब वो एक वीरान या जो सुनसान वर्ड है वो एक नेगेटिविटी डाल रहा है कि वहां पे एक मायूसी छाया हुआ है. समझ गए? तो डेजोलेट वर्ड तुम तब यूज करोगे जब तुम लोनली के साथ थोड़े सैड हो. आर यू गेटिंग इट? जैसे कि इसका जो पॉजिटिव वर्ड है वो है सोलेस. इफ यू आर लोनली यू कैन आइदर, सोलेस मीन्स व्हाट, लाइक आई एम, तुम्हारा सोल खुश है, SOLACE. If I say that when I go to mountains I experience joy and solace. तो यहाँ पे solace का मतलब है एकांत. अब ये दो वर्ड सोचो, एकांत और सुनसान, दोनों का मतलब होता है खाली. दोनों में डिफरेंस क्या है? एकांत एक पॉजिटिव इमेज क्रिएट कर रहा है, राइट? एकांत जगह
शांति.
मतलब हम लोग वहां जाना चाहते हैं.
शांति है वहां पर.
हाँ, शांति है वहां पे, मंदिर में जाके शांति मिलती है. तो एकांत जगह मतलब वो होता है सोलफुल जगह या सोलेस, फुल ऑफ सोलेस. लेकिन डेजोलेशन जहां पे है वो नेगेटिव एक इंप्रेशन क्रिएट कर रहा है. यू डू नॉट वांट टू गो टू अ डेजोलेट प्लेस, इट इज बैरन. ओके, इट इज लाइक, तो वो सुनसान जगह है.
कोई
तो
ruins
यहाँ
को
पे
मतलब एडजेक्टिव की तरह यूज किया जाता है desolate.
desolate is adjective and desolation is the noun form. Okay, so here it means lonely and neglected, which is isolated. Next line is the weakening eye of the day. Again, underline this, weakening eye of day. Yes, it
सर
means
पूरा वीकनिंग ऑफ आई मतलब पूरा अंडरलाइन करना है.
हाँ, ये वीकनिंग आई ऑफ द डे को अंडरलाइन करके इसका मीनिंग लिखो, क्योंकि फ्रेज का मीनिंग क्या है. यहाँ पे डे मतलब दिन, आई मतलब दिन का, लाइक रोशनी, सन. तो वीकनिंग आई ऑफ द डे मतलब है जब सन फेड हो रहा है, ढल रहा है. तो वीकनिंग आई ऑफ डे मींस फेडिंग लाइट, फेडिंग डे और फेडिंग लाइट. फेडिंग लाइट लिखो, फेडिंग सनलाइट, फेडिंग सनलाइट और डाइंग डे, DYING. Then the tangled vine stems. Keshav, what is tangled? Common word. Like the earphones get tangled.
उलझावा.
Uljava. One more word can be interwoven. You can underline tangled and write interwoven. INTERWOVEN. Vine stems is the vine एक plant का नाम है. So vine
सर
stems,
इंटरवोवन.
interwoven, WOVEN. One word or hyphenated
mixed
word.
up.
So tangled vine stems scored the sky. Scored means lined up. Lined लिख दो, LINED. I will explain it. Like strings of broken lyre. अच्छा, anybody who is a musician or interested in music? You? Music. किसी ने बनाया गिटार वगैरह कुछ क्लास की हो कभी? You know what is
Yes,
lyre?
sir.
LYRE. Lyre actually.
हाँ.
LYRE. Lyre, you know, harp, you know, harp.
हाँ सर, हाँ सर.
गिटार का ओल्ड वर्जन है.
सर इसको एक ग्रीक
वो
गॉड
ऐसे
लेके
नहीं,
घूमता है अपने साथ.
हाँ, जो ग्रीक मैथोलॉजी में देखते हो, वो एक ऐसे रेक्टेंगुलर टाइप होता है, ऐसे तार स्ट्रेट रहता है, उसको
तो
ऐसे से
यू
बजाते
शेप
हैं.
में होता है, यू शेप में.
तो लायर एक मतलब यू कैन से गिटार का ओल्ड वर्जन है. ओके, सो इट इज स्लाइटली लार्जर. लायर एक हार्प लाइक इंस्ट्रूमेंट. हाँ, वीणा की तरह, मतलब
जैसे हार्प बड़ा होता है, उसको कहीं लेके जा नहीं सकते.
वो बड़ा होता है.
लायर छोटा होता है उसका.
हाँ, you can say that. Like lyre is like a harp. There are small modifications, but this is not something. It is not a modern day instrument. It is. हाँ, अभी मिलेगा तुमको, ऐसा नहीं है कि you cannot find it, but it is the sort of a harp-like instrument. So strings of broken lyres means strings means उसका जो तार है, okay, broken lyre, and all mankind that haunted nigh. Nigh means nearby. Okay, haunted means lived. Had sought their household fires. Okay, now what is the meaning of the first stanza? Firstly, you note that the first stanza is full of negative words. Negative words. Frost, spectre, weakening daylight, tangled vine stems, broken lyre,
Desolate.
Desolate. So every word or every phrase depicts something which has been destroyed, okay, or something which has ended. Okay, so the poet says,
कोई chance नहीं है.
I leant upon a coppice gate. So The poet is, this is the time around evening time, maybe around 5 p.m. or something. It is nearing daylight. Sorry, it is nearing twilight. It is turning dark. The poet says, I was leaning against the gate, the wooden gate, which faces the woods. At this time, it was very frosty. Now, this poem has been written towards the last part of the year. Okay. And the weather is very frosty. There is very dim, it is not bright sunlight. The weather is icy and frosty. And also it is not, it is the evening time. So frost has been compared to something like a specter. Okay, something which is gloomy, something which is repulsive, gloomy, gray. Also, gray is a color. You know, colors हमेशा mood को signify करते हैं, isn't it? We associate white with peace. We associate black with death or something negative. That is why we wear black bands. Cricketers wear black bands जब कोई मर जाता है तो. Or people in the Western countries, they wear black dress in the during funeral. Green signifies normally jealousy. Red signifies either anger or embarrassment. चेहरा शर्म से लाल हो जाता है. So the word red indicates either anger, गुस्से से लाल हो जाना, or happiness. Normally there are bright colors like yellow. Okay, yellow is often considered with something
Right.
joyful. Okay, bright color.
So
That is why
green
we
तो
say,
disgust भी होता ना.
हाँ, there can be multiple moods, like I say कि green का एक जो popular connotation है वो है envy. Comes from the term green-eyed monster. शेक्सपियर में था, MOV में था या टेम्पेस्ट में शायद. Green-eyed monster. So green has been often connected to jealousy. So gray का मतलब क्या है? Gray मतलब neither white nor black. We often use the word in movie characters. He is the gray character. ऐसा कई बार movies में आते हैं. तो gray character means a shady character, which is neither a proper hero nor a proper villain. Understood?
Anti-hero.
For example, जैसे कि जैसे शाहरुख खान in the movie रईस, अगर वो मूवी देखे हो या सुने हो, मतलब जब उसमें विलेन एक हीरो है, ओके, तो वो विलेन भी नहीं है प्रॉपर, क्योंकि विलेन को ग्लोरीफाई किया जा रहा है. Okay, a character which is neither fully positive nor fully negative, somewhere in between. So here the word gray is significant because the day is neither early morning or noon, neither night. It is in between. It is daylight heading towards night. Okay, so it is gray. It also reflects the society, which is neither here nor there. It is heading towards gloom. And winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. So the daylight is fading, and it is the last or the residual part of the winter. The last few weeks of winter remain, and things are very desolate out there. As the poet looks out, he can see it is isolated. Nobody is there. People have resorted to their household fires. Okay, people have gone inside their homes, and they are preferring to stay beside their household fires. So the landscape outside is a very dull, very negative landscape. कोई चहल पहल नहीं है. It is completely cheerless. All right. In front of the poet, what is there in front of the poet? The patch of woods. ठीक है, jungle word woods we use करना, क्योंकि woods एक group of trees को भी बोलते हैं. Jungle is like a vast area. So there is a patch of woods. Now, before him, there are some. Now, suppose you are standing here and you're looking up. You're looking towards the sky, and in front of you there are trees. So you are looking at the sky through those trees. Okay, you are looking at the sky through those branches. तो तुमको ऐसा लगेगा जैसे कि वो branches sky के ऊपर है. Imagine करो उसको. Imagine that you are looking at the sky through the branches. So you will, ऐसा लगेगा कि sky जो है वो background है और branches या the stems है, they are lining the sky. Understood? So the poet is saying that I can see the tangled stems or the bind stems. जैसे मनी प्लांट होता है, tangled. The tangled bind stems or the creepers lining the sky. Like strings of broken lyres. So these bind stems, they have been compared to the broken strings. अगर strings break हो जाए तो आपस में उलझ जाएंगे. Okay, अगर तुम गिटार या लायर का strings को break कर दो, they will get tangled. So like the tangled strings of broken lyres, they have got tangled. All right. And so what is the purpose of saying this? The bind stems could have reminded him of something more, something positive, right? But he is getting reminded of something negative because he is talking of, he is trying to create an atmosphere of negativity and destruction. Okay, Mansha, are you able to follow? Thoda aur effort do, please. The tangled bind stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind, means the entire society, that haunted nigh, that lived nearby. Lived ke badle, poet is deliberately using the word haunted because he is trying to create negative atmosphere. Okay, तुम देखो इस पूरे पैराग्राफ में, in the first stanza there are words like spectre, haunted, desolate. These words are creating an atmosphere of deathliness, right? Haunted word हम लोग host के लिए use करते हैं. फिर he is saying desolate, सब कुछ सुनसान है, जैसे एक graveyard में होता है. So he is talking about the contemporary society, which has turned like a graveyard, where there is even the humanity seems to be haunting their houses. So they had sought their household fires. So basically, the most of the people have gone into their houses and they have locked themselves in. So the atmosphere outside is one of isolation, desolation, and gloom. It is totally bleak outside. Okay, is the first stanza clear? Any query, please ask. So Diksha, any query? Dhruv?
Sir, I had a question.
Yes.
So how are the lyres like compared to be desolate or lonely?
How are the lyres compared to? See, he's talking of the bind stems, which you can see in front of him. Bind stems are, bind is a creeper है वो. Bind एक plant का नाम है जो एक creeper है. Creeper क्या होता है? जो ऐसे उगता है ऊपर. Okay, जैसे money plant की तरह, which keeps on growing in any direction. Okay, it keeps on growing in any direction. हाँ, like biologically, I cannot give you exact thing, but the point is, bind stem is a plant which grows in any direction like a wildfire. So what he can see in front of him are bind stems.
So money
Bind
plant
stems,
जैसा.
money plant जैसा. Bind stems remind him of broken lyre. Now lyre music क्या? अच्छा, so Diksha, music तुम्हारे लिए क्या indicate करता है? In one word, describe music. Describe the word music in one word. Joy. Any one word, just.
Peaceful.
Peace, joy, magic. तो म्यूजिक को तुम हमेशा कनेक्ट करते हो with something positive. It is a mood lifter. Understood? It is a mood lifter. It brings happiness, brings joy. So lyre is supposed to be a mood lifter. By broken lyre, the poet is suggesting that the society has lost its musicality. Society has lost its musical charm. Society का music खत्म हो गया है. Okay, you have a lyre which is broken. You will be sad. You will be devastated. So if society is music, then that music is now broken. It has broken strings. So that is the symbolic connection. Got it? So he's saying that he's getting reminded of a broken lyre because he's saying that the society is now has lost its musical charm. That sweetness, that melody is gone. I can see only desolation in front of me. Look at the second stanza. In the second stanza, he uses geography. He uses geographical imageries to talk of, to further his idea. Second stanza. So Diksha, read the second stanza, and Mayank, you read the second stanza loudly.
The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outlined. His crypt, the cloudy canopy, the wind its death lament, the ancient pulse of German birth was shrunken hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I.
Fervorless. Now, look at the first two lines. The land's sharp features. Poet के सामने, in front of the poet, there is a sort of a huge open land. Okay, like a rocky surface. He is comparing that open land to the corpse of the bygone century. Now here it is important to note that this poem was written at the end of the 19th century. This poem was written in 1900 actually. When? 1900, which is the death of one century and the beginning of a new century. So this poem is written at the end of a year when a new year is going to begin, which means a new century is going to begin. A new era is going to begin. All right. So the poet says, I can see the death of a century. I can see land in front of me, the huge chunk of land, which he says, ये है 19th century का लाश. मेरे सामने जो रखा हुआ है, वो है 19th century का लाश. So he is giving a physical form to the corpse. Corpse मतलब होता है dead body. To the corpse of the bygone century. Are you understanding, Rohan? So bygone century. हम बता रहे, तो outland का कोई meaning नहीं होता. There is no word like outland. ये word उसने create किया है. Why has, in order to rhyme it with the fourth line. Look at the fourth line. Lament. Lament के साथ rhyme करने के लिए he has created the word outland. उसको जो बोलना है वो है leaning out. That is what he's trying to say. जैसे एक rocky surface है which is leaning out. Okay, exposed in front of you. So poets can take certain liberty. इसको बोलते हैं poetic liberty. And I can create a word or coin a word. Shakespeare has created a number of words which has entered English dictionary, and we use them today as normal words. So outland कोई word नहीं as such. He is just creating this word, but the meaning of this line is,
For example,
अब example याद करना पड़ेगा मेरे को, हम बताते हैं सोच के. But here he is saying that I can see the sharp land in front of me. Sharp land, so maybe there are sharp rocky edges which are jutting out or leaning out, and that entire mass of rock has been compared to the corpse. उसके सामने अगर कोई पर्वत रखा हुआ है, तो he is saying that this is the dead body lying in front of me of the 19th century, of the century which has just died. His crypt, the cloudy canopy. Crypt means, again write down the meaning of crypt. Crypt means an underground chamber where dead bodies are kept. Okay. Vault भी बोलते हैं. An underground chamber where dead bodies are kept. Actually, crypt again एक Indian concept नहीं है, because यहाँ पे we normally do not have mass burials. Okay, we cremate our dead bodies. But in Western countries, normally एक church के पीछे graveyard होता है. Okay, या church के, और if it is a huge graveyard, तो quite often there is an underground chamber. Church के नीचे एक रास्ता रहता है, chamber होता है, where you can access the graveyard. So crypt is basically a very wide or open graveyard or an underground chamber. It is a place where dead bodies are kept. The cloudy canopy. Canopy means the covering. Okay. Now the poet looks at the sky. The poet can see a huge cloud cover. huge cloud cover, which is spread across miles. He says that this cloudy canopy, this cloud cover is the crypt. It is the burial chamber of the where the dead body is going to be laid. He compares the cloudy canopy to the crypt. Understood? क्लाउड के उस तरफ इस तरफ नहीं, बस वो क्लाउड को एक क्रिप्ट बोल रहा है, that the cloud represents crypt, or crypt is basically a vast area where dead bodies are kept. So he says the जो crypt है which covers the dead body, because dead body के ऊपर crypt है ना, land के ऊपर cloud है. So he says this cloud which covers or provides a canopy to the land, this cloud symbolizes crypt. Okay, symbolizes, like Portia had said in Merchant of Venice that the tears in my eyes symbolize the lake where Bassanio will have a swan-like ending, that part. So he's simply saying that the cloudy canopy represents the crypt. The wind which is blowing has been compared to the death lament. Means, what is lament? Death lament means a sad song. A sad song which is played upon the death of a person. हाँ, जो wind का जो आवाज होता है, murmuring sound, that is being compared to the death song. That wind is also singing to the mournfully. Wind is blowing mournfully, so wind is whistling and it is singing, or it is singing in a mournful voice. So the blow of the wind has been compared to the death lament or a death song. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken, hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. Now here the poet says that I can see that the old traditions and the old cycle of birth and death. So ancient pulse of germ and birth, basically it is symbolizing the old traditions, okay, the old ideologies. Germ means basically ek kitanu, okay, yeah, germ and birth basically is reference to the cycle of life and death. It was shrunken, hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. ये 4 lines are difficult है. Try to understand this. It has a deep symbolic meaning. The poet is telling that I can see that the old thoughts, the old ideas, the old traditions, they are struggling to survive. They are shrinking. जो faith है, the faith on God is shrinking. The old ideas of birth and death, of faith, of life, the old traditions, the old values of society, they are shrinking. And right now, everybody out there seems to have become despirited. So fervorless का मतलब लिखो despirited, DISPIRITED. Now what is despirited? Means तुम्हारे अंदर वो spirit नहीं है. You are lacking the spirit of life. Understood? Suppose you have become completely depressed. तुमको अब जीने से कोई मतलब नहीं है. तुम जिंदा हो, but mentally you are dead. You have lost the zeal for life.
Hope for living.
Okay, zeal चला गया life से. Like liveliness नहीं है. So he's saying that everybody out there, as we are heading towards a new century, as we are heading towards a new era, it seems all the old values, old traditions, everything is also dying with the old century. And everybody out there has become fervorless. Everybody has lost the zeal of life, the spirit of life. Everybody has lost the hope of life. Everybody is as fervorless as I. Understood? So here he's saying it is not only I who is feeling despirited or cheerless. Everybody out there, the entire society is at a state of dejection. Everybody is dejected. Everybody is sad, down and out. So far clear? Any query then ask. Then I will tell you the background of this poem जो अभी तक हम नहीं तुम लोग को बोले हैं. First point, you know that this is the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century. Okay. And second thing is that there was something called industrial revolution, okay, which had taken place a few decades back, and usko bolte hai industrial era. Now, as the poet is heading into or stepping into a new century, he is also stepping into modern era. Okay, so there is a lot of uncertainty about how this new era will be, how this new century will be. Industrial revolution basically means after the invention of machines and printers, printing press, suddenly the society began to change. There was a marked shift in the structure of society. Machines were taking over. You know, in factories and industries, labor force or human labor was being replaced by machines. Okay, that is what began to happen in the post-industrial revolution era. So there came what you know, if you or all of you are aware of the concept of economics. So in economics, there was this major philosopher called Karl Marx. Karl Marx, the German philosopher and economist, he basically he was the one who introduced the concept of capitalism. Like you read capitalist society, socialist society, right? So capitalism is basically, what is capitalism? Capitalism is a society in which there are two types of or two categories of people. One category is called the capitalist class. Okay, capitalist class को बोलते हैं bourgeois. Capitalist class is the machine owning class, the class that owns land and machines. And the other class is the labor class, which is the proletariat. ठीक है, ये term जाने का जरूरत नहीं है, but these two are the main classes, and that is the so machines have been often accused as being the seed of capitalism. Okay. Now, what happens in capitalism? The capitalist class earns and eats from the labor of the labor class. So capitalist class eats fruits and the labor is done by the labor class. Okay. So that society led to a lot of uncertainty. Many people became melancholic, sad. There was a bit of uncertainty because ये जो power centralized हो गया था in one hand, this led to a bifurcation of society. Thereby, the new century, which is about to dawn, is full of uncertainty. The poet can see no hope there. The poet says, I can see no hope. The society has come to such a point that I can see no hope. I can see the dead body of the last century. I can see mournful air blowing. I can see the cloud canopy as the crypt. There is no hope for us as we head to a new century, into a new era. And therefore, the poet has created a complete atmosphere of gloom. Okay. So far clear? Now the poem will take a turn. Just a second. Now the poem will take a turn as we go to the next stanza. Okay. Dhruv, read the third stanza, can you? And Keshav, you read third stanza.
At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overheard, in a full-hearted, even song of joy unlimited, an aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, in blast, beruffled plum, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom.
Okay. Now, what happened suddenly? So in the first two stanzas, the poet builds up a very negative, dark, and gloomy atmosphere. So as a reader, you are also feeling a bit low, right? That is the purpose of a story or a poem. Now suddenly the poet says, "अचानक मुझे एक आवाज सुनाई देती है." A song, a voice of hope, the song of a bird, a very small bird, a very old bird, frail. It is not a young bird. It is a bird which is old and therefore very frail, very weak. Okay. अब वो weak old bird का आवाज अगर एक weak old very thin and weak bird, very frail and very old, is trying to do its best to spread hope and cheerfulness around, that gives the poet a bit of motivation. Look at the stanza. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead. Bleak twigs means bleak means gloomy, and twigs means the branches, the leafy branches. टहनी, ठीक है, वो small. He cannot see the bird. Bird कहीं अंदर में है, deep inside the woods. He can hear the voice that emerges from those twigs, from in between those branches. In a full-hearted means coming from the heart. Even song. Even song means लिखो happy song, cheerful song. Happy or cheerful song. Of joy illimited. Now the meaning of illimited is unlimited. Now once again the word is unlimited, but the poet has taken a poetic liberty and he has written unlimited as illimited. इसको बोलते हैं creative liberty. Facebook ने creative liberty लिया था by coining the word unfriend. Unfriend कोई word नहीं होता है. Unfriend कोई word नहीं होता है. Befriend होता है. Okay, यानी friendship कर लें. Unfriend कोई word होता नहीं है. It is a word which was coined, so it was created. इसको creative liberty बोलते हैं. So the word is unlimited, but illimited is the word coined by the poet for the purpose of this poem. So, but the meaning is same, limitless. So at once he hears the voice is full of joy, illimited or unlimited joy. A happy song emerging from somewhere in the deep inside the woods. An aged means very old, thrush, frail. Okay, frail means very nazuk. Okay, fragile. Gaunt means very thin and small. In blast, beruffled plume. Plume means feathers. Plume means पहले समझो feathers. Blast, beruffled मतलब अगर कभी टीवी में have you seen any like डिस्कवरी चैनल और एनिमल प्लैनेट, अगर कोई बर्ड ऐसे जोर से चिल्लाता है ना तो उसका चेस्ट जो है फूल जाता है. Have you seen? When a bird tries to scream out, तो उसका जो plumes है, feathers है, it seems to blast, okay, seems to swell up as if it is trying to blast out. So blast, beruffled plume means it is trying to scream out and its feathers seem to swell or blast. Understood? तो ये इसका मीनिंग है. Explosive. Had chosen does to fling. Fling means to throw out. To throw out his soul upon the growing gloom. Imagine this. There is gloom growing everywhere, you know, like a ghost. ग्लूम को पर्सोनिफाई किया गया है. ग्लूम मतलब मायूसी, होपलेसनेस, which is growing everywhere, पूरे जंगल में, पूरे वातावरण में. And cutting through that gloom, the voice of the bird penetrates that gloom. Okay, as if the bird is putting its entire effort to try to not only shriek, जैसे वो अपने आवाज के थ्रू अपने सोल को बाहर निकाल रहा है. It is trying to scream its soul out, its positive soul, which will try to cut through that gloom to try to spread some cheerfulness. Okay. Now also the fact that the bird has been presented as an old bird tells you that ये bird जो कि काफी old है खुद, very old, very weak, still the bird is trying to put an effort to spread some cheerfulness around, to cut through that gloom. That tells the poet that probably there is still some hope left. Okay. Look at the next stanza. Pratyaksh, read the next stanza. Mayank, next stanza पढ़ो.
Of little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things, afar or nigh around, that I could think they trembled through his happy good night air, some blessed hope whereof he knew and I was unaware.
So, of so little cause of carolings. What is a carol? We use the word Christmas carol. Carol means a happy song normally, a festive song. So caroling means singing. Okay, happy singing. Carolings means happy singing. Are you getting it? Janendra? Of such ecstatic sound. Ecstatic is again a very common word. You know the meaning? Ecstatic. Ecstatic. Ecstasy. उसी का verb adjective है. Ecstatic means very happy. Very happy, very joyful. Joyful was written on terrestrial things. Terrestrial means earthly, worldly, on this land. So terrestrial means earthly or worldly. Afar means far, nigh means nearby. So in the first 4 lines, now the poet is saying कि काफी कोई रीजन नहीं है. I can see very little cause for kind of a happy song. The earth is so full of gloom, the world is so full of darkness that I see very little cause for such a happy song. समझे? अगर सपोज बहुत ही एक नेगेटिव एटमोस्फियर है, इंडिया वर्ल्ड कप हार गया है, सब कोई रो रहे हैं, उस समय तुम्हारा कोई फ्रेंड स्माइल कर रहा है, तो तुम पूछोगे तुमको ये हंसने का रीजन कहां से मिल रहा है? How can you find what is the source of your joy? Okay, so here the poet is saying, I can see so little cause for such a happy song of such filled with such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around. Far or near, there is absolutely no reason why such a happy sound is coming out. That I could think there trembled through, that I could think there trembled through his happy good night air, some blessed hope, whereof he knew he is the thrush, and I was unaware. Poet has chosen to use the word he. Okay, it भी लिख सकता है. Poets can choose. The poet is choosing the word he. The poet says that the bird is trying to say to everybody good night in a very happy way, as it is turning dark, and the poet is the voice of the bird, the song of the bird, as if the bird is saying good night, it is trembling through the air, okay, cutting across the gloom. And gloom means sadness, sorrow, mayusi, bleakness. So the poet says, there must be some hope. There must be some hope of which the bird is aware and I am unaware. Okay. in the first couple of stanzas, the poet is saying that the world has ended. I can see the dead body. I can hear the mournful wind. There is crypt around. Everything is dead. There is no hope. Then the poet hears the song of the bird. The song is full of hope and joy. The poet says, I cannot see any reason for this hope. पता नहीं ये गाना ये क्यों गा रहा है. Okay, there is no reason for such joyful or hopeful song. But अगर ये गा रहा है तो कोई रीजन है, कोई होप है जो इस बर्ड को दिख गया है लेकिन मुझे नहीं दिख रहा, लेकिन कोई ना कुछ है. Okay, so the poet ends the poem on a note of subtle hope, a ray of hope, that there must be some hope which the bird has seen, which I am yet to see, but there is a hope lurking somewhere. So the poem ends on an ambivalent note, on a note of doubt. First two stanzas mein, poet has no doubt about it. He is completely down and out. The world has ended. It is a completely negative outlook. Remember page number 5, I told you what is the meaning of fatalistic outlook, जो introduction में था. So in the first two stanzas, the poet's outlook is fatalistic. Means he creates a world where everything is coming to an end. That is fatalistic outlook. But in the last stanza, he says that शायद मेरा outlook गलत है. Probably I'm not entirely correct. Probably there is some hope, some joy, something which is going to come in the next century, something that the bird has foreseen, which we are yet to see. So he begins the poem on a very dark note, on a fatalistic note, but he ends the poem with a ray of hope. Okay, thrush being the symbol of hope. All right, any query?
No, sir.
Fully clear?
Sir.
Okay, those who haven't submitted the report and this, please submit by today. I will give the answer of this on Thursday, most probably.
Okay, sir.